This week's film, Grave of the Fireflies, is another animated and war film. So I'll be answering the three questions, starting with why is authenticity important in wartime narratives? And I have two examples. The first being that if you don't remember the past, it'll happen again, but much worse. In the final part of the reading, it says, if contemporary reality is disassociated from the traumas of the past, the historical catastrophes of the war might not only be repeated, but be repeated with an even deadlier difference. This time conceivably both beginning and ending with discriminate nuclear attack. So, like the saying goes, those that do not learn from their history are doomed to repeat it. And the other example that I had for why authenticity is important in wartime narratives is it gives you a chance to mourn the losses. Also from the reading, while it can be argued that vividly reproducing such grotesque bodily images is integral to Nosaga's bearing witness to the sensory realities of his traumatic personal experience, fixation on such literary details works to inhibit or forestall the work of mourning. So him putting together these images makes the narrative more authentic because you're seeing these real images that actually happened during the war, and this gives an opportunity to mourn specific cases. And so looking at the next question, how might Nosaka's altered accounts reflect a coping process, and what impact does that have on our view of his authenticity? I think that he changes the story to make it more meaningful to him. He describes himself writing in a stream of consciousness, and so he's relating the story in a different way so that it relates better to him. And he's also splitting himself up as these past experiences make it easier to follow the story, because he said that he had done wrong things in his past, but instead of having those all be bottled up into one character, they're put in bits and pieces to different characters. That way, the audience doesn't, one, hate the main character right away, but you see why these certain characters are not liked at all, because they had qualities that Nosaka himself didn't like. Because you see the main character was a bit nicer, whereas the widow, I don't think anyone really liked because of the way she treated the two characters. And moving on to the final question, as a public voice of Japanese war memory, should Nosaka be held to a higher standard of truth? I think not, because the author, this whole thing is the author's way of dealing with grief which is his own way of dealing with it. And so he respects the past, but he's also trying to admit his own defeat, his previous wrongs. He said that he did things wrong during the time of his life, and so this was a way to right those wrongs, get all of the negative things that he did in the past out, as a way for people to learn that the effects of war are great and that they have a very strong effect on people, but that there are ways of going about dealing with these conflicting behavior. So that's my explanation for Grave of the Fireflies.